Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today we're checking out a cordless vacuum from Greenote. This is their GSC50 vacuum cleaner, and the one that I've got is the combo pack, so it includes all of the accessories with it as well. Here you can see the box. It is a very compact vacuum cleaner, and the key kind of takeaways and positives of this is the fact that you don't need to wall mount it or anything like that. It folds down, so you can actually just tuck this into a corner and hide it away rather than having it on the wall. Here you can see all of the accessories and everything that come with it. It does come with an extension pole, so you don't have to use it bending over. And here's all of the accessories that I got. So the pack that I got actually includes a second filter as well. Here you can see just the head alone, so obviously it does all disconnect and you can connect it all up. Once you've disconnected like this, the battery compartment does come off as well. On the top you do have that little button to change between the two speeds. It does have two different speeds, and it has the blue button, which is what you actually detach the battery and sort of take the whole thing apart with. Now another sort of key feature of this is that it has a little click button on the actual foot itself, so you can actually just stand this straight up and it will balance on its own, so you don't need to lean this against anything. As long as you have it in its lowest sort of setting, it will just balance on its own. Now I did also manage to get it to balance even when it was sort of extended, but I would recommend that you actually keep it retracted, keep it in its lowest form, and that gives it the best sort of balance. Here you can see where the actual charging port is on the bottom. That is one sort of downside of it. There isn't really a very good solution for the charging. I would have preferred some sort of magnetic charger. You do have 3 LED indicators letting you know what the charge of the battery is. And here you can have a closer look at the actual foot itself. Okay, so let's get on to some actual usage. So the good thing about this is it is a single click, so you don't have to actually hold the power button like you do on most of these kind of vacuums. Once you've clicked it, it's on. It always defaults to the lower power setting. That does give you more battery life. I will show you later on how much battery life I actually got with it just running constantly on full power. I believe it was around about almost 11.5 minutes. In terms of usage on this particular carpet, because this is a very thick pile of carpet, it can be difficult when you get right back. So once you're pushing off, it is quite difficult because the wheels on this are quite small compared to my other vacuum, my Eufy one. This one's probably a little harder to actually maneuver on a thicker carpet. You can see the LEDs in the front there. It does illuminate any obvious dirt, but I wouldn't necessarily say that this is bright enough to be able to illuminate everything. Here you can see another quick shot of the actual LEDs themselves and the brush in action. As you can see, even with it switched on and operating and with it extended into its maximum height, the vacuum will still balance perfectly well on its own. In this next clip, I'll show you just how loud each of the 2 settings are. Okay, so far the test has been quite easy because that room is quite clean. So I've now moved into the living room. This is probably, I don't know, maybe 2 days worth of dirt that's basically just accumulated. We normally vacuum this rug daily, and what we did was I just left it for a couple of days just to accumulate a little bit of dirt, sort of dust, just light dirt, nothing too heavy. Basically what I'm doing is I'm giving the Greenote a chance to actually go over the whole rug. I did have it on the lower setting initially, I believe, but then I did switch up to the high setting, and I gave it around about 4.5 minutes. I will have sped this up when you're watching it, but essentially I gave it 4.5 minutes. Now, it may not pick up on the actual camera as well, but to me in person, I could see that there's almost like a fine layer of dust that ends up settling on this particular rug. So the actual black of the rug is quite dark, and whenever you've got that thin layer of dirt on top, it tends to almost look grey. So I'm used to knowing what this rug should look like. As you can see, it does struggle with some of the sort of finer bits that are stuck into the pile of the carpet. Now, one thing I will say is this actually does a lot better job than my Eufy when it's transitioning from the rug onto laminate. The Eufy tends to grab the corners of the rug a lot more, whereas this, for laminate and for low pile carpet, I think this actually does slightly better. It does leave behind a few bits, and what I do later on is basically I just repeat the same thing with the Eufy, put that on higher setting and just go over the rug just to see what I can actually pick up. So basically seeing what it's left behind. Bear in mind that this vacuum is about half the price of my Eufy, and the Eufy isn't exactly expensive either. The Eufy was only around about $200 when I purchased it. This one retails for around about £100 or $100 depending on where you're buying it. Now, one thing to bear in mind is normally whenever I'm vacuuming this particular rug or this room, we don't actually go over it this many times. We basically just give it one hit with the Eufy, and that can generally do a pretty good job. Okay, so here you can see the actual release mechanism for emptying it. I'm not a big fan of that, and I'm also not a fan of the actual colour of this. It's a kind of browny, goldy kind of colour, so you can't actually see the dirt very well. It has collected a fair amount of dirt in the actual chamber itself. Okay, so moving on to the actual Eufy for comparison. So as you could see, the chamber was empty. It was emptied before I actually started, and I basically gave it the same amount of time, around about 4.5 minutes to basically go over the rug again. So the biggest difference between the two that I noticed was that this managed to pick up all that sort of fine dust that was kind of ingrained in the fibers, and I think that's mainly just down to the bristle design. So the Eufy does have a sort of coarser bristle, and that just means that it can kick up the dust in between those fibers a bit better. The Greenote sort of design in terms of the head, it just seems like it's a bit shallower, so it probably doesn't get as deep into the fibers as this one does. If you're using it regularly, then I don't think that's going to be a problem, but obviously for something like this where I know what it should look like, it does make a difference going over it with the Eufy. Now, as I mentioned before, this is twice the price, and I wouldn't normally run it on full power either. Normally whenever I'm using the Eufy, I run it on, it actually has 3 settings, and I just leave it on the middle one. So when you start it, it kind of starts on the middle one. Now, where the Greenote is better is, unlike the Greenote, the Eufy, you have to actually hold the button down. Now, one thing to mention is when I was using the Greenote on a thicker pile carpet, it can put strain on your wrist because obviously you're having to push it through, whereas the Eufy's head is a bit more maneuverable, so it's a bit easier on your wrist, so it doesn't actually put as much strain, but it does get more annoying because you have to hold the actual button. And here you can see how much dirt it actually collected. So there was a little bit of dust and dirt that it left over, but as I said, that's just mainly down to the bristles on the actual Eufy vacuum. So my conclusion is that this is a very capable and compact vacuum cleaner. It's probably more for those who either have another main vacuum and they want to actually have something a bit more portable, or for those who actually clean very regularly. As long as you're keeping on top of it, this should be able to keep up with most households. I wouldn't really recommend it for deep pile carpet, so if that's all you have, I'd look elsewhere. But for under £100, then you really can't go wrong with this. I will have a discount code in the description below as well, so do check that out. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I'd really appreciate if you could also like this video. And until the next one, thanks very much for watching.